Let's try again. Go ahead, Frito.
Okay, let's try again. Good evening, everybody. I'm Deep Frito. There we go. And welcome to tonight's edition of Storyteller Studio. Tonight we're going to be talking about what makes a good story and some retrospective on my first 6 months of playing TTRPGs and whatnot. We've got a bunch of stuff going on this week. First off, in an hour and a half, at technically 12:30 in the morning, we have Paddington Prowler with the three other wonderful people you see on the screen, which we'll get to in just a second. Wednesday at 11 p.m. EST, Eternium Gate is back after a brief hiatus. And then on Saturday at 11 p.m. Eastern is Somerset Studio. What? Somerset City. I don't know.
Yeah, it's our season finale too.
And it is the season finale of Somerset, which will be exciting. Because maybe aliens? I don't know.
I mean, the aliens showed up, so yeah, definitely aliens.
It's true.
They were
That's
there.
So, I'm gonna welcome all of our usual people here tonight. The man in the captain's chair, Eric. How are you?
I'm good. My grill doesn't work, so I'm a little sad.
Oh no,
I have to,
not on the first official day of barbecuing. That's terrible.
which is January 1st. Um, but I have to tear it down and like do a full like auger out and all that. So it's gonna be a lot of work, but
Sorry.
it'll be okay.
Okay.
But I'm here now,
And I
so
can totally see you grilling in January.
I did. Right
Okay.
before I literally had steaks before we went live with All Else Fails. And then I grilled the night after. Because snow is only a deterrent to wimps and
True.
people without insulation blankets on their grills.
Sarah, when was the last time that you guys grilled?
A month ago,
Okay.
maybe. I tried to convince Jeffrey that today was the day, but no.
Yeah. It's the unofficial assumption that Memorial Day begins summer and therefore is grilling season. So it's
It's
not,
okay.
yeah, it's not
We
summer
did.
where you are, Chantel, but it's still quite warm. How are you?
I'm I, that segue.
He's getting
Yes,
better and better.
they're getting better.
So good. I am good. I'm also I have to question what season it is every year, and it really annoys my husband because I grew up in the Northern Hemisphere, so seasons confuse me. I didn't grow up in the US, so the idea that Memorial Day is the beginning of summer doesn't really make sense to me either. But you know, it's I'm always confused when I get to June and I'm cold.
That's very true.
The way my dad explained it to me, the reason why Memorial Day is the first unofficial day of summer is because Memorial Day is the day we celebrate and commemorate those who lost our lives defending the freedom of the United States, right? That's our stance on Memorial Day. Summer represents the most free of time. It's the season of freedom, right? It's the freedom to be outside, it's freedom to do whatever. And so since we're commemorating that freedom and commemorating those who fought and died for it, we start summer on Memorial Day.
Makes sense.
I liked it, so
Yeah. Compared to Australian summer where we all stay inside because things are burning down. Like yours better. Let's do that.
it's fair.
Very
What are we
true.
talking about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about a couple different things. For me, I kind of want to get people's thoughts, and I'm going to lead off for a bit of what makes a good narrative. And some of it is a misconception for me, which is something we talked about several weeks back. But my assumption and what I have really very much enjoyed about the shows on Do Respite and some of the other like D&D campaigns that I have watched on a variety of places, is that it is not goblins and ghouls and combat all the time. And for me, I think if I had gotten into this genre of gaming and storytelling years and years and years ago, I would have been all about fighting and combat and doing things along those lines. But for me now, I'm very much more interested in what's going on in this world. What are my motivations as a person, as a character in this story? And what are my motivations to do whatever the thing is for that particular campaign? And so for me, looking into what makes a good narrative or a good story is that background of what's going on, what's led me to the circumstances to be wherever I am. But yeah, what I guess to you all, what is it? What makes a good story or good narrative to you guys?
Do you mean to watch or do you mean to engage in?
Yes. Let's go with
Sure.
watch. Let's go with watch for now, and then we'll talk about to be in.
To watch, I need people who care about the story. I feel like if people don't care about the story that they're playing, and I suppose that's also an engaged thing as well. If you don't care about the story, why are you telling it? Why would I watch what you're doing if you don't really care about what you're doing? To me, that I think that's one of the biggest things that makes for a good story is engagement.
I like to see character growth. If the characters stay completely flat and one-sided. So I guess I like characters that aren't completely two-dimensional or really flat, and I like to see them grow as a character and change depending on what's happened in the story. If they have things happen to them in the story but they stay exactly the same, even though that wouldn't make sense. I mean, the stories don't have to be like real life, but people change depending on what's happened to them. So I like to see the characters react to the story and change and grow with the story.
And I think that's a really good point of, I guess, kind of one of the difficulties that I've had. And it's something that we've also talked about here in one of my self-help hours a couple weeks back, is dealing with the character choice and how the character changes based off of their choices and what's happening in game versus me as the player. Dealing, coping with those things. We mention it a lot, but having the players be invested in what's going on, having the inter-party engagement of the story, like you were saying, Chantel, of everyone needs to be invested, because if somebody's bored with it, they're either not going to talk, they're going to stare off into oblivion if it's a streamed game, or just leave and build an inn, which I've heard has happened, and it's not fun. But I guess, are there... No, it just left my head. Are there themes or worlds, we'll say, that you have had success in, or that you have enjoyed either watching or playing in, that you enjoyed being there? For me, going back to my original thought of what D&D or Savage Worlds or any of these tabletop RPGs I thought it was very much going to be a Harry Potter / Lord of the Rings style. We're going up to meet the goblins and investigate this castle. And
Do you want to go
All
meet
of that.
goblins? Like, we
I
can
mean,
do that.
we can,
I
but
know where they are in Emios. Like, they exist. We can go that
And there are
way.
good stories to be told with goblins. I feel like you're,
I'm-
denigrating the poor goblin right now.
Gosh dang goblins.
Poor goblins. What did they do to you?
I don't want to talk about it. It's those Diablo 3 goblins that run away with all my treasure.
Oh, I thought it was when they took Rocket Jump and made Heroic Leap on an ICD.
Oh wait, wow, goblins. Okay, it took longer than actually no, it shouldn't. We haven't played that in ages.
I'm still mad.
That took an appropriate amount of time for me to get the reference.
It's been 8 years. I'm still mad.
It's so for me, really, I don't know anywhere I go because everything is new to me is interesting. Whether it's the world of Emios and the current iteration of Eternium Gate, or Crossrip LA, and I'm somehow a Ghostbuster. Everything for me is new and shiny and awesome. So I don't necessarily care where I am or what I'm doing because everything is a new experience for me. Which was, yes, it wasn't goblins and ghouls and whatever, but that's what my naive understanding was at the time. And so I guess my question is, what are areas that you have played in or participated in that were particularly enjoyable?
Do you mean like settings?
Yes, settings. That's what I meant to say.
There's so many. That's so open-ended. There's so
know.
many different settings that can be fun. There's fantasy, like you said. There's different kinds of fantasy. Like Chantel and I played in one where we were holiday figures and we saved Christmas. And that was awesome. I was a cookie elf. I liked it. One of the settings that we did that was like my second one to play in was ETU, which is on a college campus and your college students. And at first I thought, why are we playing in a game where I have to be like a human? This is going to be boring. I want fantasy stuff. But it turned out to be a blast. We had fun until my character died. It was fun. So,
Don't
yeah, you
attack
can
the
have.
mob.
We were in an underground area where there was no getting away from the scary.
No, Andrew attacked the mob first. That's why you ended up in the underground area. But
Anyway, we were slaughtered. We'll just leave it at that. But it was fun up until that point.
It was like an odd place to be if you're in college, but okay.
Yeah, well, ET
It's an
is a
odd place.
spooky college
Okay.
setting. Lots of weird things happen in it. But yeah. So urban fantasies, Paddington Prowler is a steampunk fantasy. There's so many different fun settings that you can play. Sci-fi is fun till your whole crew dies and it's a TPK. So many settings are fun.
That's the first time.
So many settings are
That's
fun
the
until you die. Okay, got it.
The really funny thing for me is that all of the settings that you described up until you said sci-fi were all fantasy. So,
Actually, sci-fi is also fantasy. It's like a
Yes, it is.
subgenre of fantasy. So yes, they're all fantasy.
all
I suppose you
fantasy.
could do historical fiction, but I've never played in one
It
of
would be
those.
that's steampunk. That's Paddington Prowler. That's historical fantasy.
Every time we've joked about doing like a Jane Eyre or like some kind of like Eric rolls his eyes and he's like, no,
Mhm.
I'm not running that for you. So
Yeah.
some people would apparently not find that fun.
But it can be, and that's the really important point. I didn't think I was going to enjoy playing a supers game, which is also fantasy, but I did. I feel like no matter what happens, because of the game, because you're playing a game, it is by its nature fantasy. If we were playing a slice of life game, that wouldn't be fantasy. That would just be painful realism. That's what it would be. But because when we don't, I mean, you can. I don't know what that would look like. We can. But yeah, the games that engage us, they're all they all have their own sort of thing to them. They all have their own like little kernel of themness. And they're all good story. Like all story is good story. It just has to be the story that you want to engage with. I feel like we've gone off topic. Now I'm rambling.
It's okay. Rambling's usually my job because I don't have my questions formed in my head before I start talking. Eric, what about you? You've run and led a bunch of games. You've also played in a whole slew of them over the many years.
Not really. I haven't gotten to play for the most part.
Oh.
I think my total play time versus jam time, I've probably played maybe a 10th, maybe a 20th of my total time of getting to play. I think I've played in 3, maybe 4 campaigns for more than 4 or 5 sessions in 25 years.
But you like it that way, as far as I'm aware.
I would love to play. I would love to get a chance to play in a long-term campaign.
Frito, I hope you're listening.
But frequently...
You want me to GM something?
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be an adventure.
That's the point.
I'm ready.
That's what we play for. We play to have an adventure. But I mean, for the most part, there are people out there who adopt the mentality of if I'm gonna play, I have to run. And somebody has to run, right? Like there are GM-less games out there, but I've never found them to work very well. Personally. I like to come back to settings that are mine. And that isn't for egotistical reasons. I don't sit and think my setting is more interesting than someone else's. It's just when something comes up that I haven't thought of and someone wants to harass me about it in game and be like, why does it work that way? I get to very much be like, because it does. Because it's my setting, right? So I get the opportunity to say that. Whereas, and there's a joke of the author of Dresden Files, who was at a convention and he was talking to people and they asked if he'd ever played the Dresden File RPG because he's very much known to be an RPG player. And he said, no, I've never played Dresden Files. And they're like, what? Why? And he says, because I write the thing, and if somebody ever did it wrong, I would tell them they did it wrong. And then if they're like, but you've never published it, I'd put it in the next book. So then it was wrong. And I have that issue sometimes in other worlds where if I try and run somebody else's world, then I get off track there. So I like to be in my own worlds for that reason. I also like to be in my own worlds because if you've been paying really close attention to Paddington and Somerset and even our one-shots with Crossrip and those kind of things, they're all interconnected. And if you pay really close attention, you can actually find some of our other seemingly less connected one-shots that are more connected than you think they are. So it's just how my brain works. And so I like to play in those settings. Because I really like those moments where a player who's been in multiple campaigns has that kind of aha, moment. Like you guys had in Crossrip LA when the fingers came through the Eternium Gate. Or like everybody in Somerset did when the Eternium Gate rode out of Loch Ness, right? Like those are fun moments for me as a GM, and cool story moments for me as a GM where you realize that your actions have impact on more than just you. And I think to go back to your original question, to me, that's one of the most important aspects of a good story. I've played in some games or I've watched games played where the players all live in this world where their actions to them only affect their characters. And there is nothing less true in gaming to me than that. Your actions have an impact on the world you're in, the impact, and in the case of any Do Respite Eric Taylor run game, your actions may have butterfly effect impacts on other worlds than yours. So for me, those are things that make stories fun, and those are the settings I like to play in, are the ones that I'm writing.
True. And that's one of the things that I think I definitely did, and so did Chantel and Sarah, I would say, last week in Wicked Felina Part 2.5. I don't remember what it was called.
Part two.
Part 2 of meeting our good friend Gunter in a cursed tavern, and having that realization of, oh, one of the other characters I play has a very different interaction and a very different relationship to this individual than the current character that I'm playing. That was a very big eye opener to me of, this whole interconnected space and things being in an ever growing, evolving world. And if you have some interdimensional being that can be multiple places, there's no reason why he couldn't show up.
When we had that conversation actually in postmortem for Somerset, as people started to come to the conclusion of who their and not who, but what those patrons are, and the fact that the patrons to these Sentinels of Earth are Kezrakai, and so any other world that you're playing in, that's a horrible, horrible thing. But these people on Earth don't have that context, right? They don't have the Emiosian context of what the Kezrakai are. And I admit as a GM that that's part of stories that I like, is I like to push my players as people. I like to see my players grow. So we can look at Wicked Felina. You guys weren't going to beat Lucifer and Lilith. That wasn't a thing you were going to do, right? Like, the devil and his wife are here, we'll win, right? That wasn't going to happen. But it was designed to teach people to understand that losing doesn't mean the story ends, and losing doesn't mean you die. Losing just means you lost. Now what do you do? And it's how do you pick up the pieces and move on? The same thing with the forced perspective shifts in, hey, here's the Kezrakai, they're your patrons, they're granting you power to save Earth, but you play in a game where the Kezrakai are the ultimate evil to you. Now you have to adjust your thinking for this set of players, and you have to kind of expand yourself as a player. And for me, I like the stories. I like to tell stories with players that do that. I like to see, like Sarah mentioned, I like to see character growth. I like to see character progression. I like to see player growth in game. I like to look back and be like, this is a stronger, more versatile player now than when we started 16 weeks ago, which I think we can say definitively about everyone playing Somerset as an example. So I really like that. My games that I'm running, the stories that we're telling, are not intended to be soap operas where character progression is bad. They're not intended to be sitcoms where character progression is non-existent. They're intended to be, good novel style growth arcs for characters.
And I think building on that, that's something that I think makes for a good story to watch and to play, is when characters, because ultimately we play TTRPGs for the characters. Like, it's great being, and some people love it, being entirely railroaded, where the aim is to like see the view as you go past, but like actually just get your going towards something. You're going to roll some dice and hope you win. That's not why I play. Why I play is because I want to interact with things. If I wanted to sort of stay on a roller coaster, then I would get on a roller coaster, I suppose, but like read a book, or read a book that has, here are your 4 outcomes, because those books exist. And so I would do that instead. Or I'd play a video game, because there's a lot of RPGs out there, CRPGs, that give me that as well. When I play a TTRPG, what I want is to be able to engage fairly intimately with the idea of character progression and character growth and story progression, and you know, bonding experiences. Like the people that I play with here after like 16 weeks, I feel like I know the person as well as I know the character. I don't know everything about everyone. We don't talk about everything. And sometimes it's just about like, you know, this is the decision that Nora makes. That tells me something about Sarah. I don't know what it tells me without any other context, but it tells me something. And it's endearing the way that Nora makes decisions, and that endears me to Sarah. Like it's those things that build over time, and those things create good story, which is why I think when it comes down to streaming, things like Critical Role, the reason why, or one of the reasons why they're so engaging, is because they've been playing together for so long that they have built themselves a family in that. And I think that makes for an engaging story, because they can then pull each other in directions, and they can, you know, start to test friction and test tension and pull and push on each other, and sort of make decisions that if I were playing a one shot, I would feel less inclined to make, because it's a one shot with people that maybe you don't know, so you kind of hesitate because you don't know what that is. But when you have a group for that amount of time, you start to elongate those relationships, and that to me is very rewarding to watch happen. And it's one of the reasons why I get mocked by my husband for going back and watching, you know, myself in stream. But I'm also watching everyone, and I'm watching these relationships build up, like over Somerset's season. What's lovely about it, and over Eternium Gate season as well, like being able to watch relationships build. Like it's not even it's the story, but it's also watching the relationships between the people. And where, you know, originally it started out that, you know, Belmir and Serge knew each other but didn't know it, like the people didn't know, and the characters hadn't figured things out. By the time you get to, you know, Serge's exit, you've got so much, there's this huge shift where the people know each other, so they can make certain jokes more freely. And I think that in itself is so engaging to watch, and so engaging to be a part of as well.
I think some of the, like you were both saying, is comes down to the players being more comfortable with each other and understanding each other as real people, and can then use that knowledge and that information in the game itself. And I think it's much easier to have those, you know, whether it's influencing story pacing, or having a conversation, or just sitting back and watching Margaret have time to work with family, and to see her grandparents, or to see her family, and have that little one-on-one time, because we can all sit back and we can watch, because we know that that's a important moment for her as a character, and as players we all end up respecting that and sitting back and allowing that scene to play out, however it ends up being played. And that's happened a couple times in Somerset, and I know that Sarah appreciates it, and as a spectator I've enjoyed those moments, to be able to just, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to watch the awesomeness of these scenes play out. But I agree, it very much comes back to this comfortness of us as players. And I'll admit, some of the some of the hesitance that I had in the Crossrip game was because I didn't know two of the people that were in there, and I was like, I don't know if we as people or we as characters are going to gel and mesh, and it all worked out, and it was an extremely fun session. But I think kind of a little bit of that hesitance played out in the first few episodes of Eternium Gate when I came in as a brand new player and we were forming this party. I guess we're gonna tangent.
Go, Frito, go.
Going before more shenanigans happen. So I shouldn't have brought it up. Anyway, what have been some games or groups that have been particularly memorable to you as players? Whether is it the people in the game? Was it the setting? What was it about a particular group that you ran that made it good or awesome in your minds?
I ran a game when I was going to community college for about 18 months, and we played once, sometimes twice a week in that time frame. And we did usually 4 or 5 hour sessions because I was a lot younger then and I could sit for longer. But what made the game memorable is I had plotted out this entire story that they promptly ignored. And it was my first experience as a GM really dealing with more open-ended kind of storytelling rather than what I refer to as the Pirates of the Caribbean Disney ride method, where you're going toward a destination, but you have a little bit of bob back and forth in your little tube. So it looks like you have this illusion of choice, which is something I frequently did with newer players because some newer players want that as they get their feet wet. But it was the first time I'd experienced open-ended storytelling. And what had happened was they were supposed to be on this whole, like, dethrone an evil despot of a king, and they all decided that this one backstory element to one of their friends' characters, where his dad had just disappeared and he wanted to find his dad, was far more interesting. And so they dedicated 18 months of running around the world discovering that his dad had been a guard at this specific outpost guard tower that had been captured in this anomaly and was phasing in and out of time and appearing in different places. And the character went on this whole research agenda to figure out how to stop it. Figured out he couldn't stop it, but figured out how to essentially insert himself and his mother into that recurring time loop so they could at least be with their dad. And everybody supported him in doing this, although they didn't quite understand his end motivation, which is a different part of the story. But it was this whole thing where the story I'd written, the story I'd developed, no longer mattered. What mattered was this backstory element that nobody had cared about as far as I had known, that was just minor, like, oh, his mom's a widow because of X. And then they just latched onto it one night in like a get to know each other campfire kind of interlude. And they're like, and it was literally one character who said, well, I'll tell you what, I promise on the soul of my dead ancestor that I'll help you find your dad. And we literally spent 18 months finding this guy's dad and getting him on, and he performed some ritual, and then he made his real life fiance mad by shoving her off the tower so she couldn't get torn out of time with him. And I very vividly remember that interaction. But the story was great, and it was totally unexpected. Somerset City has been great because it's been totally unexpected. Paddington Prowler has been great because we took a game that I was convinced was going to be unpleasant, and it's been fun. Um, when we first started brainstorming Paddington Prowler, it rapidly became Downton Abbey, the RPG, in brainstorming, and I literally didn't think it had legs, and I wasn't. I'll be honest, I wasn't looking forward to it at session one, but it's been fun, and we've had a good time. Eternium Gate has been great because Peter can vouch for the fact that I've been trying to get Peter to play tabletop RPGs for 10, 20 years, and wanted to, and it's been great to get to see that. But in terms of playing, I played in a pirate game a long time ago that I very vividly remember just because it felt so different from that usual dungeon crawl that at the time was the norm. The go here, go into the ruined castle of Chernabog and beat up the goblins, right? Like Peter has mentioned several times. For a long time, that was what D&D was to me, because that's how a lot of kids played it. But I remember doing something very different, so that stands out. But for me, those are the big ones. Is what I've gotten to do here and do Respite, and then that campaign in college that ran for a really long time.
For me, it's this for me it's not, I mean, yes, it's the people, but it's also the story and it's the energy. It's really difficult to pick a game because I very specifically and very carefully choose what I play and who I play with. So the people are always going to be a huge factor in that. And if I'm not enjoying a game, then I'm not likely to keep playing it for long. I enjoy the cleanup crew. It is something that is so different to anything else that I play. And it's different because, one, it's basically a long form one shot. I'm playing with two different people of the four player characters every week. So I'm meeting new people, which is great. And as someone that is an introvert, that's really important that I meet new people. And I enjoy the sort of very lightheartedness of it, that it floats above and it sits sort of on this silly level, which I really quite enjoy. I couldn't do it all the time, but I enjoy it when I do. I'm on everything on this channel, and I'm on everything on this channel because I enjoy the way Eric story tells. I enjoy that. That is fun. Like, feeling emotional pain is enjoyable to me. I like it. And I have specifically asked for it to be a thing that happens. And so why would I shy away from it? I enjoy playing with the people that I play with here because for the most part, they'll go along with me. They know that I'm crazy and enjoy that emotional torture. But they'll be like, okay, we're all over here, we're fine. Chantel's over there going through we don't know what. It's fine. She's clearly okay. But then it's the energy of the overall, like Unlawful Disorder, which is on hiatus. I want to play now, please. Unlawful Disorder. Michelle approached me and asked me to find some of my friends and come play. Of course, I'm going to love that game for so many different reasons. One of them being that I specifically went, I want to play with you, you, and you. And that's what's happened. But also the energy of that game where, because all of the PCs have an acting background, we'll be saying really stupid stuff and making gas jokes and 1 minute, and then the next minute, like, we're all sitting there crying because everyone in that game is like me and crazy. It's fine. I think I feel like that my favorite games have been those games where I have been in charge of choosing my environment. I don't know if that makes a great deal of sense. There are times when I play one shots where I'm not in charge of my environment. I've come to play with people I don't know. And so that environment isn't up to me. It's up to everyone collectively. When I get to choose who I'm playing with or choose what we're playing or, choose something like that, then I just innately enjoy it more. Um, and I think that to me is the reasons I enjoy what I play and what gives that narrative its poignancy for me.
I think there's something to be just said for that in general. We get a level of critique at Do Respite because our casts are very similar through a lot of our shows. Sarah's on every show. Chantel's on every show. They're on every show because they're players that I trust. They're players I love playing with. They're players I love to tell stories with. And if I was building a dream team of RPG players, Sarah and Chantel would be on my dream team. But part of that is also the kind of stories that we tell are stories that, if you're going to have that level of emotional vulnerability, and yes, there is a streamed element that makes what I'm about to say ring strangely, and I understand that, and that's not lost on me, but having that level of emotional vulnerability with people that you don't know as your co-players, not your audience, is very difficult, if not impossible, and is exponentially, in my opinion, more uncomfortable than the fact that watching Chantel break last week in the Hag's Hut as she signed her contract. That would have been harder and more miserable and more unpleasant if the other three people in the stream were not, at this point, very close friends of Chantel. And if the person telling the story and putting her through that, as my email says, cheap trick emotional torture, is not a very close friend as well. That's why, and there's a lot to be said for one shots. There's a lot to be said for alternating in members and having those great things. What Scraticus does over on his channel is amazing, and I can't do it. Like, I give all the props in the world and all hail to King Scrat, because the idea of bringing in 2 new players every single game legit makes me want to die. Right? That sounds awful to me. But Scrat does it, and Scrat does it well, and it's great, and it brings people into the hobby. But we tell very different stories on Do Respite than Scrat tells on his channel. And the reason I surround myself with a specific group of people is to tell those kind of stories, because it's the kind of stories I want to tell. And I want people who are incredibly comfortable. When we went to start Eternium Gate, Chantel said to me, I had a start date in mind, and I published it in our staff Discord. And for anybody who gotten to read it, because I posted it at a really stupid time in the morning, Chantel messaged me and she said, it can't start on that day. And I was expecting Shawnee to tell me, I have something going on. What Shawnee told me is, she says, I don't know this person and I don't know this person. Until I have played in a one-shot, I will not play in a campaign with those people, because I know the kind of stories you tell. And I need to feel comfortable to experience that level of emotion with those people. And so it's Shawnee's fault that we have Shadow of the Cone as a thing. But it made a big difference in Eternium Gate's chemistry. It made a big difference in the story that I was able to tell with Eternium Gate. It has made a big difference in the story content that we've gotten in both Paddington and in Somerset. And in my opinion, it will make a big difference in whatever we decide to do with season 2, season 3, season 4, and beyond. I found my dream team of players, and until they tell me I'm really tired of playing games with you, I'm going to keep bringing them back to play games, and we're going to tell those kind of stories. And eventually they'll probably tell me they're tired, but that's fine. I get it. I'd be tired of me eventually too. But I think that goes back to the very first answer to the question you asked, Frito, which is what makes a good story? And I think to every single person, even on a show, even in a game, that answer is different. You could ask Sarah what makes a good story and Chantel what makes a good story, and they play in 3 of the same games together, and they're going to give me different answers, which makes my job as GM harder because I need to cater to both of those things. But that's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do, and it's why we as a community, not Do Respite, but as a TTRPG community, play these games, is to tell good stories in the way we want, be that high action set pieces, which Shawnee didn't know Shawnee was going to find fun as a thing when I first described them. But they're in every one of my games, and people eat them up now. I think Sarah is getting more used to, she's still not totally comfortable with, but she's getting more used to the high emotional context games. Frito came in blind and has been blindsided with everything that we've thrown at him, right? But I think finding those things and surrounding yourself with a group who values similar things, but also places value on what you want to see, is important, and I think makes for the best experience. We've only got 5 minutes left in show, and I know we're going to run a little bit over, audience. I'm going to warn you right now.
Didn't say.
Right,
Sarah
I know,
didn't
because we
say.
need Sarah to
Oh,
say. That's part of what's
yeah.
going on here. But I'm warning the audience in advance. We are going to go a little bit over because we lost like 5 to 7 minutes in tech time. So we are going to go just a little bit over tonight because we do want to get Frito's overall 6-month retrospective. But Sarah, we do want your answer to Peter's question.
I was having so much enjoyment listening to the rest of you. I'm like, okay, I'm good with this. We can end. They have all said amazing things. End of story. I like lots of different things. I like something about every game I've played in, but it isn't always the same. So like with Paddington Prowler, I enjoy the story and I enjoy my character. I also enjoy the fact that we as players have so much fun talking about our game between sessions that Eric has had to make us a channel on Discord that he has muted because we were driving him insane. And every time my phone dings, my husband's like, this Paddington Prowler chat, isn't it? I'm like, yes, isn't that awesome? So that game, I am having a great time with the people I play with and chatting about game all throughout the week before we play again. But then there's other things I like about different games. If you watched Somerset City, you got to see my pirate Alice. That was the first character I ever made a costume for. So that has like a special place in my heart. And I was really apprehensive playing in a pirate game because really, historically, pirates are not pleasant people and there's a lot of unpleasant stuff in that kind of a setting. I wasn't sure I would like it. But I had a blast because Eric mostly left the unpleasantness out and picked the fun things about pirates to put in the game. So, and other stories, we played in a one-shot at Gen Con, which normally you would think a one-shot at a convention wouldn't be something you would have a ton of fond memories of, maybe. But I got to play with Eric. Instead of Eric being the GM, he was a player. And I got to poke at him with my character the whole time. It would, because our characters were butting heads, and it was fun. And my character kept calling his character the wrong name. And one of the other people that didn't know us was like, she's not getting your name right. And he looked at him, he's like, yeah, she's doing that on purpose. That was awesome. So I like something in every game I've played, but it isn't always the same thing. and that makes it even more fun.
Yeah, I think it's very much it's a compilation. I think this is kind of what everybody said. It's a compilation of wonderful moments across all space and time of of games that have been played. There's highlights from every session. There's things that you've enjoyed. There's things that you've learned from, and that goes into just figuring out what you like and what helps you as a player or as a character move on, have those good experiences while playing. And we're done. Close stream. Boom.
All right, so Frito,
Yes, sir.
I've been trying to get you to play games for 20 years. We had one suboptimal experience when we were teenagers.
Yep.
And then every time since, I've invited you to play, and I've invited you several times to play in our adulthood because I don't give up easily. And it was this continued stream of, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good.
You wore me down.
It did. That's how I got my wife to marry me. I'm real good at that war of attrition thing. But then we launched Do Respite, and you tuned in to watch a one-shot. And at the end of that one-shot, you messaged me on Discord, and you said, all right, I want to learn how to do this. And I was like, yes, sweet. And I went to Alicia, my wife, and I said, hey, you remember how I was only going to do game on 2 nights a week? I'm doing it on 3 now because I need to find a night Peter can play. And so we added the 3rd show because I already had casts for the other 2 shows and I needed to add a 3rd. And then we incorporated a 4th show when we lost another show, and that's a whole other story. But you gave me a 1-season commitment to play game at the time. That season technically ends in 2 weeks, but I don't get the impression you're done playing.
Depends on what happens to Belmere on Wednesday. I'm kidding.
Man, that's like a Sarah level of passive aggressive. I don't know if I can handle 2 of you. Oh, I'm hurt.
No, I don't think that I could say that. Okay, I have experienced all of the things that can happen. I'm good. And having over the last several weeks here on Storyteller and the various games that we've run on Wednesdays when I show up, I think it's very apparent that there are significantly more things. And by significantly more, like infinitely
amount
more
of things.
things that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing games for 20 years, right? Like,
And you obviously haven't gotten bored of it.
I'm not bored yet. I made it my career. Cool. So let's talk then. I have 3 questions, and I'm going to give us about 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll sign out. Everything for Paddington's done. So, question 1. What surprised you most in the past 6 months? Be it a moment, be it an experience, be it a learning thing. What surprised you most in joining this hobby and embracing a new side of nerddom?
I would say I'm probably surprised the most at how much I think about what happened and what could happen on the next show. Like, there are times if I'm bored at work, all of a sudden I'll be thinking about, well, what does Belmer think about random thing? What's Father Sam gonna do now? And there will be times when I'm just idle, not necessarily thinking about anything, where a plot point will pop into my head and I will say, and I'll have that thought of, okay, how does Belmere actually feel about being Saz Gamath's herald? Where is he at emotionally with that whole situation now? And so the fact that it's not just self-contained on Wednesday for 3.5, 4 hours. and that it bleeds over into any day of the week. It's probably the most surprising.
Okay. So, second question. What is it about TTRPGs that you have discovered that you love most in a world where it was like, okay, this is an experiment, but what is it that you decided, oh man, I really love this about this hobby?
And this is something that we've talked about a lot off camera. It's the same thing that I love about TV shows. Specifically 30 Rock, for some reason that comes to mind a lot. I find enjoyment and entertainment and humor and whatnot in the series of random events that led us to a particular area. None of it may make sense from a real world, real person perspective, but this is the situation that we're in. And I enjoy that experience of 4 people meet up at a tavern and we all decide that we're going to be friends. And maybe we roll poorly, like last Wednesday, or maybe not. And allowing that, some of that choice or that decision making up to a roll of a dice to determine an outcome or to adjust a scene in some way. Something that I don't necessarily have control over, but I have a little bit of stakes in. I shouldn't say stakes, a little bit of influence in.
So, third question. You are, in our video game playing experience, you are more of a modern and science fiction person than you are sword and sorcery fantasy. Do you find yourself wondering, what if I was playing this genre instead? Like, do you ever find, like, it's a weird question, but do you enjoy the genre that is Father Sam in Weird West more than you enjoy, and you're obviously enjoying MEOs because you play, but do you enjoy that setting more? And do you ever find yourself wondering, would I have more fun playing sci-fi, or would I have more fun playing a modern game versus if I continue to play sword and sorcery?
I think the only one that I think would be odd is probably a modern game. And, you know, at face value, I think it might just be because it comes too close to reality. Not that I had issues or anything with the Crossrip game, but being able to, because it's here, you know, a couple 100 miles away in California, it seems too real to me, and not necessarily being able to say, oh, well, I want to do this. Because for me, that would be a difficult distinction between game world versus world. And what's could happen in the real world might not happen in the game world, or vice versa.
Okay. Looking at the time, I got more time. So, we've talked a couple of times. COVID is a thing, obviously, and we're still stay safe, stay healthy, stay home. That's still our tagline. It's going to be real rough when we don't have to stay home anymore, and I got to figure out another third thing to add at the end of there. It's going to mess up my flow. Not that I want this to continue, just so I can flow. Let's be super. Yeah, that works. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. We'll go with that. Do you find that you think you'd get more enjoyment out of playing online or playing in person?
I don't know. And because I don't necessarily, the dynamic obviously is different when you're sitting around somebody's kitchen table versus sitting in our respective offices staring at a webcam. But the mechanics of what we're doing apply universally. But I don't know.
It's fair. And Shani or Sarah, if you have questions, we have 8 more minutes to grow Frito, so be sure to jump in there with any questions you have.
Which has been your favorite setting? Because you've done Cone, you've done Weird West, you've done Emios. Which has been your favorite setting specifically?
I would say that Emios has been my favorite setting, mainly because the lore master, I want to understand this world that we're in. I feel like there's a lot. Eric, it's obviously something that Eric has curated over the last 20 years, and so I want to be able to. I want to pick his brain. I want to understand this world is created and what has led him as a person to create this world and some of the influences that have come into it, but also all of the many different things that he's written that other player groups have done and how that's influenced the world. And so yeah.
Would you want to play with another GM, DM, storyteller?
I don't see why not.
I'm just curious. Some people, like, they have their preference and that's what it is.
It would be a brand new experience,
It's true.
just like everything else. So I have no reason why. There's nothing that comes to mind that would make me think it wouldn't be fun or enjoyable, aside from the thing that we keep coming back to in every single show is play with people that you like. And in some cases it could be going over to someone else's channel or being invited somewhere else, and I don't know, who knows, maybe Matt's running a game and he brings in some people and it would be a different experience and a different method of storytelling, but bring it on. Chantel game.
Have you have you oh no, tangent.
Hey, you singled me out.
You've done it now. Have you started doing that thing where you just randomly create characters in your head?
No.
Or do you stick with the characters that you're playing?
I'm not to the point where I think I'm not to the point where I have just created someone. Because to me, I think where I'm at right now, I would say from a character creation standpoint, is I need to know what world he's going to be in.
Yep.
And whether it's, and obviously as we learned last week that gnomes can exist in the Weird West, because Jeff showed up last week. But I to me, that seems to be an impediment to me of what world am I in. At least have that route set, and then maybe.
Same question then, but have you considered a backup character? Because obviously it happened to me. It can happen to no, it's not something that I tend to like. I don't tend to create backup characters as a just in case this person happens to die. Oops. I will have another one in the back of my head. No, I just come up with it on the spot. But some people come up with backup characters that they keep on, like, just even if it's just in their mind, they consider it. Do you, or have you?
No, that has never actually entered my mind as a possibility until just now.
No, it's
good job.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I used to all the time. My characters used to die a lot, though.
Considering the number of pages of backstory that both you and Katie have created, I would not be surprised if there were mostly fleshed out characters that correspond with backstory. That's Eric nods approvingly.
I don't know who you're speaking to. I feel attacked, but also I haven't done pages of backstory, so it's not me. But I don't. Are you talking to Sarah?
I'm talking Sarah and Katie.
Okay, cool, good.
Nora doesn't have pages. Margaret does.
Uh-oh.
Peter, you got the chance to replay Father Sam, which you had been wanting to do because he was one of your first characters. So was that experience all you had hoped it would be, or were you left disappointed?
I definitely wasn't left disappointed. I definitely wish I loved it. It was super fun for the last 2 Wednesdays to play Father Sam. What I ran into as, I would say, a difficulty was I was trying to remember, especially last week when we were in El Paso the whole time and interacting with the mayor and with Felina, aka the devil, and Lilith. I was trying desperately the entire time to remember everything that had happened in the 3 original episodes of that set, and trying to remember what had happened and what tools might be around, what knowledge I had that I was trying to glean or to remember. Okay, there were several times during the session that I was messaging Chantel, like, do you have a blood acorn? I was, no, well, Shady had one, but I'm
Do you
not
feel
Shady.
do you feel that that impacted the amount of fun you had? Because even if Shady had been alive, I did not do that for that session. I just kind of went, oh, this is great. We're back here and I remember these characters, but I don't remember anything that happened.
Mhm.
So let's just see what happens this time. Like, do you feel like that impacted you?
Um, I think it did impact me a little bit. I don't necessarily think that I got to the point of metagaming and trying to game the system, but I was definitely a couple points trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? Because I didn't remember that the mayor was the devil until post game or the end of the session when, shake my hand and make a deal with the devil. I hadn't quite remembered that tidbit. I knew that the mayor wasn't the mayor originally because the mayor was the piano player, but I didn't remember who the mayor was.
I don't know that that was revealed, but that might just be. But that's the thing. That's where I
I
kind of
think that
just went,
happened.
"Meh."
I think that happened inside the saloon and was a Father Sam
Oh, that's why I wouldn't
Lilith
know.
moment. So you might not know.
'Cause
Surprise.
I wouldn't
Well, it doesn't
remember
matter.
it
You
because
know
I
that
didn't
enough.
engage with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I definitely had fun stepping back into his shoes and trying to continue that story and figure out what is he going to do. Plus the psychological warfare of the way that the devil worked, of taking the truth and twisting it to a 45-degree angle and then saying that's what happened, and those kind of mind games of, well, yeah, but maybe this is true, maybe Felina did need to come back as an angel from above. So that was fun for me.
Alrighty, so last question, and then
Okay.
we're going to close out. Frito, please note that I'm intending to have only 4 people per game, and games are very full right now. So this is not me saying, hey, come be on another game. But if you were given an opportunity to play in more than one TTRPG in a week, have you decided you like TTRPGs enough to play in more than one a week?
Yes.
All right. That's what I need to know.
Turnium, or not Turnium. Somerset City is confusing.
Yes.
Get on my level.
Get on my I run it level. Let's
That's true.
follow
I'm
this
just,
corridor.
You
I'm
know
just an
what's
audience
happening.
member that kind of watches and does something else at the same time. And I'm confused. And I'm not in it.
Alrighty, take us home, Frito.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. We're going to be super quick on our outros because in 15 minutes we will be back for Paddington Prowler episode +1 from last week.
7.
But sure, 7. I don't keep track of these things. I've been your host. You can find me at Deep Frito on Twitter, on my very much neglected account. But you can find me here on Wednesdays for Eternium Gate at 11 Eastern. Saturday is Somerset City also at 11 Eastern. And Mondays at 11 p.m. Eastern is Storyteller Studio, followed shortly after at technically 12:30 a.m. Tuesday for Paddington Prowler. But Chantel, are you excited for shenanigans this evening?
Yes! I'm so excited. You don't understand how excited I get for this game. You can find me at wordswithcolor.com. You can find me at Chantel B on Twitter. But you can also find me really excited here in 10 minutes. But then in a corset at that time.
Also tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on Scraticus's channel for Cleanup Crew.
Yeah. I didn't because I saw the thing happen.
Yep.
Thanks.
Audio listeners can't see the thing, but that's fine. Sarah, are you excited for 10 minutes from now?
I'm excited. I don't know if I can be ready in 10 minutes. I guess we're going to see. I'm excited to play, though.
If we have to be a little late, we can be a little late. That'll be fun. Alrighty. I'm Eric Taylor. Respite is my thing. You can find us here Monday, Wednesday, Saturday for Storyteller Studio, Paddington Prowler, Eternium Gate, and Somerset City. Also, please go find us on Patreon, patreon.com/DoRespite. This is my job. It's what I do for a living. I need it to make money. That would be great. And if you want to support Do Respite, which is amazing and wonderful, and we're grateful, Patreon is the best way to do it because they give me the most of your money. So you should go there. Subbing here is great as well, as is donations if those are more your thing. But if you want to support and you want the most of your money to make it to Do Respite, Patreon's the way to go. Other than that, find us on Twitter, find us on YouTube, where you can catch all of Season 1. There are some coming changes in Season 2, including we're going to push toward being podcasts, which is a Patreon goal as a thing. So if we can get the money rolling in, we want to be podcasts. You can put us in your ear holes while you don't have to watch our faces, which I understand. But besides that, we will see all of you in 10 minutes for Paddington Prowler. And on behalf of Shawnee B, Frito, and Sarah, good night, good luck, stay healthy, stay safe, please stay home. See y'all next week. Bye, everybody.